Dr. Adeleke Otunuga, and as you know, I was a student union executive at the University of Lagos. I was actually the social secretary of the student union. I think we have to really be factual. We have to be truthful with ourselves. A lot of us who are veterans, who witnessed firsthand the importance and the roles of student unionism in Nigeria, we stayed away. It will interest you to know that I was not aware that the University of Lagos had no student union until I think last week, when I read an article by someone on Sahara Reporters that was talking about, University of Lagos without student union, and I was like, and he actually said for 9 years, and I was surprised. I did not know. I was not aware, and that shows that we have stayed away for too long. A lot of us, we are always at home. Some of us live in Nigeria, some of us live overseas, but we're always at home, and we never ever thought it wise to do a visit. At least we should be following up to see what is going on in that place. I think everything also boils down to what I said earlier, that we left those sectors alone, and because we did, powerful forces, evilly powerful forces in Nigeria were able to hijack those unions. So what they do is they install their proteges, they put them there so they can, control the unions or the associations through their proteges that they have installed. In our days, we were able to recognize those signs and we were able to stave off those situations. Not anymore. I think the present crop of student leadership in Nigeria, they need the benefit of experience of some of us who are still alive, who had been there, who had been through it all, who, know what is going on. I think it boils down to the general level of apathy, In those days, we used to contact those who were ahead of us, even those who were like, a decade or more ahead of us. We used to contact them, and I think that was because of our passion. We had a passion, to fulfill the mission of the unions. But these days, those passions are eroded. People are in it for reasons contrary to what the reasons are supposed to be. The only time I could ever say I was contacted, I was actually still in I had graduated, I came back for my master's degree, and they contacted me at one point, and I told them, I cannot actively participate any longer. I could give you guys, advice and all that. They wanted me to serve in a committee, for which I felt it wasn't necessary. It was a committee that was actually set up for the school, by the school for the union. And that was one of the reasons I turned it down. I said the school should not set up a committee for you. And the school, if this is a student union committee, the school should not have a representative in it. That was the reason I turned it down. Then, since then, there had been no contact. When you look back, with the benefit of retrospection, first of all, those who will call it, youthful exuberance and all that, yes, I believe at some point there were times when we could say we went a little too far, or we didn't do it the way, the popular opinion was supposed to be. But in general, if you had not been a victim, if you have not passed through what we passed through, you can be free to pass judgments and say, oh, it was youthful exuberance or whatever. But if your first semester in the school, as a new year one student, you were a victim of, cultism, if you had been a victim of cultism, if you had been a victim of unprofessional attitude by the lecturers, if you had been a victim of different kind of vices that exist in the university at that time and even now, then you will understand why at that time we took or were taking the stance that we were taking. You know, we believe at that time that with our collective strength, we can fight successfully, you know, most of these vices, and we were able to do it. The only thing I can say that with experience now, I will say that if today was our time, I will say that we'll do more consultations with the outside world, more consultations on certain issues before we take to the streets. I can only just give instances. I could, if I think back, like issues like increase in school fees, for instance, you know, I believe it will have been wise for this, you know, for the students' union to, first of all, do consultation with the school authorities, see their point of view, why it was necessary to raise fees, consult with the students themselves who were supposed to bear the brunt of the increase. What do you guys think? This is the position of the school. And then consult, you know, first and foremost with the people, with the human rights community, see what their takes are, and then take a popular position on those issues. Because sometimes, you know, of course, we can also link that back to the issue of indolence in leadership. Sometimes our leaders believe the only way they can raise money is just to increase fees. It could be arbitrary. Sometimes it might make sense. We don't know. We won't know until, you know, we actually go deeper than the surface of the issues. Well, in the 90s, those were the period when Nigerians were just, you know, unjustly subjected to the rule of force, brutal dictatorship by the military regimes. And they did not just come there, you know, they came with full force against the Nigerian people. The 90s was the period when no one had a voice in Nigeria. You know, if you attempt to say anything against the government, you were either hounded down to be killed or to be thrown in jail. It was a period when, even as students, those of whatever, it doesn't matter whatever campus you were in Nigeria, that was a period when even the student groups, student bodies were being infiltrated by the agents of the state, not to make peace, but to cause chaos, to destabilize, you know, the bodies, and so that the government could have a voice. Those were the time when cultism came to its height in Nigerian universities. That was the time when even government, you know, the government was accused of actually sponsoring cultism in Nigerian universities as a way to checkmate students' union activities. Actually, one of the objections that I had against, you know, the list of 100 people for Centennial, whatever, I did not see any student union leader there. The students fought for the democracy that is being enjoyed in Nigeria today. Well, enjoyed in quotes, you know, but there is democracy in Nigeria, so to speak, now, and the students were at the forefront. We were the last bastion of hope. Yes, they can help in so many ways. I had been a participant in one form or the other since my year one at the university in student politics. You know, there were different progressive groups on campus, you know, that tend to, you know, to encourage students, you know, to discover your voice and to speak up against vices. We belong to different kind of groups, progressive groups. And most of these groups were being anchored or sponsored by ex-students or ex-student leaders or activists on campus, outside of the campus. They come, we see them as role models. We used to see them as our teachers and mentors. But we are not doing the same thing for students nowadays. So they have no mentors. All they probably go to the library and see Akitunde Ojo on the wall. Most of them will not even know who Akitunde Ojo was. Most people will not know who, Segun Okeowo was. Most people don't know anything because we are not there to fill in the gap. So if I'm sitting in a group, with former student union activists, I will tell them this is the time to take action. This is the time, to rescue the unions back from the forces of oppression. Because believe it or not, they are in control. Well, it's a matter of, you see, we always talk about revolution. And I believe that revolution does not have to be, it does not have to be through armed conflicts. The greatest revolution you can find is the one that seeks to reorientate the minds of people. And that was the gap that the groups I talked about, were filling up. Groups like the Thomas Sankara movement and the rest of them on campus then. You orientate the minds of the people. Now, in those days, there were things, there was a way that the students take charge. If any of your elected leaders, are not following the path of reason, there were constitutionally laid down procedures to push them out. I remember, during our time, even before, I was in the student union as an executive, as a student union, as a student activist on campus, we will sit down and discuss issues. We will discuss, the actions that have been taken by the student union leaders, what they are doing, what they should be doing that they are not doing, or what they are doing that they shouldn't be doing. And then we decide on a course of action, whether in support or against. Those were the days when we used to talk about somebody becoming a persona non grata. You remember that language? We declare you persona non grata at the student union building. You can't come there. You are no more welcome. You are not welcome at the Freedom Square. You are not welcome here. You are not welcome to talk to any of us. If you go too far, we may even declare you persona non grata on campus. That means you can no longer come to school. So those were the days when the people had, the control. And I think that is what should happen now. We understand what is going on. With the NANS president and the rest of them, we understand. A lot of us were also induced, or they tried to induce us in those days with, some material stuff. We were able to rebuff it because we had people behind us. You know who you can call if the president gets arrested. Some of you that are standing, you know who to call, and then we know where to start from. You had that orientation, you had that training. You were like sector commanders, so you know what to do when the leader is taken down. Anyway, I think the first thing to do, the first most important noble course of action to take is, to start reaching out, to others like me who had been there, who had passed through this stage. Earlier I said the 90s was the golden age of student unionism, because we know that in the 80s before, we knew, the turbulence. We knew that at some point it was like student unionism in Nigeria was dead. And then it was resurrected during the 1990s. So I think the most noble course of action to take is to start making the calls, and start feeling out people, start telling them, start talking to them, start reaching out. What should we do? How do we proceed? What is the best course of action to take? And then we move forward. I think this is the time to really sensitize our people, to get the people ready. Not just the students alone, all organized bodies, you know, in Nigeria. So many things are happening, and they are happening so fast that as soon as a news breaks today, you already forgot what happened 2 hours ago. You know, so many terrible things are happening in Nigeria, and we cannot just fold our hands and look, because our children, they will ask. You know, a lot of us that are domiciled abroad, you know, there are so many news that we shield from our children, because we know the implication. When your children see these things, they don't feel like, they don't want to go to Nigeria. They see that place as a place that, you know, they should not go to. And it is not good. It is not good. It is not good that Nigeria has become the laughingstock of the world. It is not good that Nigeria has become a place where people don't want to go to. When we were growing up, Nigeria was a glorious place. It was a wonderful place. It was perhaps the best place in Africa, you know, to live and work. But today is probably one of the worst, you know. So we have a noble cause, you know, to do whatever we can do to make sure this trend is abated. And one of the ways that we can do it peacefully is to start massive reorientation of people.
Let me ask you something that is a little bit of a digression. You write, you know, once in a while, and you obviously no longer live inside of Nigeria. Are there times that you feel like giving up on Nigeria in view of what you know, what you hear, what you read about the degeneracy that has become Nigeria today?
Let me tell you, and this is very true, I've never given up hope on Nigeria. You know, once in a while we get down to discussions, you know, committees and conferences and all that, and I know the opinion of people, and what I tell them is that, like today, I was having a discussion on one of our discussion boards called Nigerian Politics Discourse, and somebody had talked about Nigeria as a failed state. I felt very sad about that comment, and I wrote a lengthy piece, you know, that I submitted to the forum. Let me tell you, and this is very true, I've never given up hope on Nigeria. You know, once in a while we get down to discussions, you know, committees and conferences and all that, and I know the opinion of people, and what I tell them is that, like today, I was having a discussion on one of our discussion boards called Nigerian Politics Discourse, and somebody had talked about Nigeria as a failed state. I felt very sad about that comment, and I wrote a lengthy piece, you know, that I submitted to the forum. And what I felt was that when you talk about bad leaders, I believe for every bad leader there's a bad follower.
Lots of bad followers.
Or lots of bad followers, because if you have leaders who are not doing what they're supposed to do, for God's sake, if the country could be made ungovernable for IBB to step aside and run to Abuja, that's a military dictator. If that feat could be achieved at that point in time, I believe there is nothing preventing Nigerians, you know, from kicking out these idiots that are parading as leaders in Nigeria. So if at this point in time I'm at the University of Lagos, I think the most important discussions that should be going on is, look, how come we are in a university, and the first things in general African studies, all of those, you know, compulsory NUC courses, the first things that they teach you is that don't allow nobody to take your freedom and to take your voice, you know, especially, you know, if you're in the Faculty of Arts, they start teaching you about Frank Fanon, they start teaching you about Hegel, they start teaching you about, and you want to ask questions, you want to ask your lecturers, how come, you know, the freedom of association is our right? How come, well, in the first place, was this the union proscribed, or the students just gave it up? I believe it was proscribed.
I think so.
So, and so many times we had gone to court about the issue of proscription, and the courts have ruled that proscription is illegal. No school authorities has the right to proscribe any legal association. You can regulate it, you can make them operate within the ambits of the law, but you cannot proscribe it. You don't have such power. So you want to be asking questions. You want to be talking to yourselves as students. You want to be talking to your lecturers. You want to be talking to the school authorities. What is going on? We want our union back. Because I remember in our time, there was a time that the student union was proscribed, and we went to court. We went to court and we won against that proscription. The court ruled that it was illegal. And so we got our union back. So I believe those are the things that should be going on right now. But like I said, most of us need to, because a lot of these students don't even know. They don't even know that there are legal precedents concerning issues like this. I think everything boils down to the general orientation, the general mindset, right? The general mindset that was pervading in those days, you know, you have students that they call paperless and whatever, and all of you, and people come to school not to study, but for reasons that you mentioned. It changed when the political environment changed. You know, when the socio-political environment changed, when you have leaders who are forward-looking, who have a different mindset towards, you know, the real existence, the reason for the existence of students on campus, it changed. I remember a particular incident. I still remember this young student very well, but I will not mention her name. She was a victim of one of these, they call them aristos, that will come to campus and pick up girls. But this guy had a psycho problem. So every time there would be an attack, he would pick them up and drive them to some solitary place, sometimes on campus, and molest them. But for a long time, no students reported the incidents, you know, because of fear or shame or whatever it is. Until a particular evening that a lady approached me and said something happened to my friend, and this is what happened. And that set, you know, in course a whole lot of activities. Then we took up the school authorities on it. Because of that, the school authorities had to employ, it's one of the reasons they employ security guards on campus then, because we said we did not trust the school security system. So they employed private security guards and all that. Eventually, this guy was caught. And one of the things we did as a student union was, you know, to inform the student populace that most of these things you're doing is dangerous. Most of these things are dangerous. You cannot be treading this path of action and all that. And of course, the student union always have programs. You know, we used to have positive programs that students attend to and all that. And so these take, you know, their spare time away from all these frivolities. But now that the student union is no more, and everybody is to himself, you know, I think the consequence will be what we're seeing right now.
Well, Dr. Adeleke Otunuga, thank you for coming on SaharaTV today.
Thank you so much for having me.